So we then have to ask the question, well, why are settings important? Um, Clearly, as mentioned previously, people spend a lot of time in these particular settings. So obviously, the more time someone spends in a particular area, the more they're influenced by that environment. Um, and as this point makes, it's not only that the settings actually provide access to people, but in fact, the environment that people are in actually shapes their lives. Um, it's also not only health that's a particular issue, and in fact, often, usually, people are in a particular environment or setting, not because of health, but for other important reasons. But those other reasons impact on health, and so the setting also provides options to look not only at physical but also emotional, mental, and social well-being. So these are reasons why a settings approach to health promotion is actually quite useful and important. Um, Now, it gives using a settings approach actually gives us an ability to change organizations, and looking at some of those upstream or distal factors that relate to health and affect health. Also, we may be able to access specific populations that we can't access by other means. Um, because we are working at sort of that distal aspect of the trajectory of health development, we may be able to actually institute a sustainability. That is, whatever we do will last for a long time. Um, it also provides various channels of influence, not only channels of communication, but channels of influence for delivering health promotion intervention. Um, Also provides structure, so we've already got a structure. For example, if we look at, say, schools, um, there's already a policy and legislative and behavioural and cultural structure that we can actually plug our health promotion into. And also, on that basis, there's also already a funding structure that is built around settings like schools. So there's already infrastructure there for health promotion to occur. If we then start thinking about settings and how to use settings, there's some considerations we need to make. If we're looking at, for example, the social environment, these are types of questions we might ask. What is required to make a setting health promoting? So we would look at, say, how the social environment is promoting social and mental health, looking at the physical environments. Are there elements you expect to find in a physical environment? What are they? So we've got buildings, we've got grounds, like fields, etc. We've got streets, all giving potential to actually um, promote health in various ways. Then we look within the setting. We look at, well, what are the specific policies that we would expect to find in a health promoting setting, and also looking at it from an organisational level, what processes and practices would health promoting setting have? So we've got these four elements that you might be looking for in terms of how to actually institute some sort of health promotion intervention. If we look at the health promoting schools model, schools being one of these settings um, that we might actually consider in terms of health promotion, you can see here there are a range of different areas that we would look at. So this diagram outlines three different aspects of a school that we might look at. So firstly, there's the curriculum within class, so within each grade, and also across the school from, say, if we're looking at primary school from years 1 to 7, we would see opportunities for integrating health promotion aspects into curriculum teaching and learning. If we look at the whole school, environment outside the class, but still within the school. We could find opportunities for health promotion within the school organisation, ethos, and environment. So, for example, if we're thinking about sun safety, we might think about shaded areas, passive recreation areas, whether a place is clean, whether there's a social justice, strong social justice aspects. So, for example, you might think about bullying here. And then outside the school, what sorts of partnerships are in train with the school? So, does the community come onto the school and interact with the school? How does the school interact with community welfare services? So, you can see here using schools as an example of a setting. We've got a really comprehensive set of possibilities. If we then start thinking about, okay, let's think about mental health promotion in schools, and we can see here this matrix where we move from, say, the whole school environment through to individual students needing attention, and the approach that we take will be very different. So you can imagine that if individual students have problems, then they would probably need professional one-on-one intervention. However, if we're just thinking about the school as an environment which encourages and promotes healthy psychological and social well-being, then we would be thinking about how we might be able to manipulate the environment to do that. If we then introduce mental health concepts into the curriculum, we can then impact on knowledge, attitudes, and behavior. And moving further along, we can target individual students, individual groups of individual students to start working on early intervention. And then we move down to the level of students with specific psychological issues. Of course, with any model, there are strengths as well as weaknesses. And so we need to consider, when we're designing health promotion interventions, we need to consider, well, what are the problems associated with the settings approach? And here is a list of 3. Firstly, the populations most in need often are very difficult to reach, and so they may not be engaging with these classic sort of well developed settings. So if somebody is not going to school, then the health promoting school setting won't access them. There may be conflict between the organisation and health promotion in a variety of ways. There are plenty of opportunities where there may be some economic pressures on an organisation which necessitate people working long hours. Now, working long hours is not necessarily the most healthful way to live your life. So that's a fairly rudimentary example of this. And also settings can be quite difficult, quite intransigent to change. And so it takes a long time to actually institute change within a setting. Here we have again an example. Now this can be done, usually it's done by a group, but in this case you can do it as an individual task, as again as a way to prepare for the end of semester exam. So to think about the setting in this case is a local sporting club. Now there are many different health issues that we might imagine like a local sporting club could be associated with. But if we're thinking about the whole setting in general rather than the issues, you would run through these questions, for example. So if we think about the potential health issues that a sporting club might be involved in, so it might be involved in, say, alcohol supply. Gambling may be another issue. Okay, so these are problems, but at the same time, local sporting clubs actually provide a lot of community facilities and community support. So we have to weigh up the downside and the upside. So the types of questions we might ask in relation to supply of alcohol. Um, are there low alcohol options? Is the functions of the club, do they center focus on and draw attention to alcohol, or are they centered on something else with alcohol as some sort of subsidiary facility? Um, what is the culture of the club? Is it a culture of, say, which promotes binge drinking and excessive drinking and drink driving, or is it a club which promotes sensible approaches to alcohol? Are there other opportunities besides focus on alcohol? Are there family days? Is it child friendly, and is it affordable? Because again, um, people only have a limited number of dollars to spend, and if they're spending more dollars on, say, alcohol, that means they've got less dollars to spend on other things which are associated with health. So that's an example of case study. But let's sort of take a step back and look at what guiding principles may be involved in terms of health promotion action using a settings approach. And here's a list of considerations we need to make. Firstly, we need to understand the setting that we're dealing with. So we need to understand social, environmental, economic aspects of the setting, which gives us an idea of what types of interventions we might be able to get involved with. Also, we need to look at the evidence around health outcomes associated with settings, and that involves, say, morbidity, which are rates of death within a population, rates of illness within a population, and mortality rates of deaths within a population. We need to look at what partnerships we might be able to build within the setting, and also how to actually engage and empower people working within the setting rather than the top-down approach, which is quite classical in many settings. And then we need to also consider what are the upstream, distal versus downstream, proximal factors, and we need to think about the interventions which might actually be suited for each level within this. So if we look at upstream distal factors, we need to look more at socio-ecological approaches, whereas if we're right down at the proximal end, right near the individual, then primary care approaches, so individual health interventions are appropriate. And this matrix also alerts us to the issue of different types of prevention levels, primary, secondary, tertiary levels. And you can see here that as we move backwards towards the upstream factors, firstly, near the consumer, the proximal issues rely on things like behavior change and also information provided to subjects. But as we move back towards the distal or upstream factors, we then move towards engaging and also all these instruments that impact more on settings, which is policy and regulation, legislation. So again, with health promotion, there is no one gold standard intervention. Basically, we're looking at a matrix of interventions based on our understanding of proximal and distal determinants.